Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our distinguished speaker series. As you know, we've been doing this for this particular semester, and starting with January, and this is our March event in lieu of Women's Month, right? And so today you are going to hear a special panel that's going to speak to our subject of closing the gap in key areas where women are really underrepresented, but are now paving the way to make sure that we have a space in those areas. And those areas, as you know, we look at areas of IT and cybersecurity and economics. And so it is so important that this topic is discussed and talked about, but also that you get a chance to meet these fabulous women that we have among us that have done just that, and they're able to kind of share their story with you. So welcome our students, welcome our community to this event. We have our next one in April, and I'll talk about that a little later. But I'm going to actually hand it over to Miss Jada Hall, and she is the coordinator of our STEM Promise program. And so Jada, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, for joining us this morning. Is it still morning? This afternoon. And happy Women's History Month. This is one of our events. We have another event on the 26th, so make sure you check our TCC calendar for that. I'm looking forward to a great conversation with our moderator and our panelists today. But before we start, I do want to give you some information on the STEM Promise program. This is the program that I coordinate through formerly the Women's Center, soon to be, as of next month, the Student Empowerment and Resource Center at TCC. So our STEM scholarship, our STEM Promise program, it is for students interested in studying science, technology, engineering, and math-related degree programs at TCC. And keeping up with our theme for today, this scholarship is highly encouraging women and minority students to apply, as these groups are generally underrepresented in the STEM fields. So the scholarship is a 2-year full tuition scholarship. It's geared towards students just beginning their degree programs, such as high school seniors, students, TCC students with a limited amount of credits, and also career switchers. We're going to be selecting 20 students for the opportunity, and they will begin in the fall of 2021. Deadline is April 1st. If you're interested in learning more, just email me at jhall@tcc.edu. I'll put it in the chat, or you can visit our website and just type in STEM Promise Program into the search box. That's my plug. With that said, let's get started. I'm going to introduce our very impressive moderator for today's discussion, Penny Williams. She is an adjunct assistant professor in TCC's business program. She earned a civil engineering degree from Howard University, a master's of business administration from the University of Michigan, and an education specialist degree from Virginia Tech. Professor Williams has a decade of teaching experience, is a former marketing professional who worked with major companies in New York and Washington, D.C. And she, if you check her shirt out, she is currently owner of Cat's Yoko products. This is a line of natural handcrafted creams and oils. She is going to be leading our discussion today. So without further ado, I present to you Professor Penny Williams.
Well, thank you so much, Jada. How you guys doing today? Welcome. Right. Awesome.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. This is such an exciting way for us to come together, celebrate Women's History Month, Her Story Month, right? So today we have 4 phenomenal women who will share their story, her story, on how we can close this gap between and making space for women in engineering, computer science, econ, and cybersecurity. So our objective, as Dean Nancy said, is to learn from the panelists and have them share their insights, share their experiences, so that we as a society can be stronger. So within this hour that we have together, and we're moving quite right on track, we have crafted some questions that we'll ask each of the panelists, and it'll give them an opportunity to to reflect on their experiences and share their insights. And then also, we will give you in the audience an opportunity to ask your questions. And so if you have any questions, put them in the chat and then we'll get to those as well, so that this will be a rewarding and interactive session for everybody. All right, so with that being said, let's introduce our first speaker, a panelist, and that is Miss B Ballard. Miss Ballard is a mechanical engineer in the nuclear propulsion division at Newport News Shipbuilding. Her job involves researching, designing, improving, and developing equipment for the maintenance of nuclear reactors for aircraft carriers and submarines. Ms. Ballard has a BS in Civil Engineering Technology from ODU. While at ODU, she was active in the American Society of Civil Engineers, the National Society of Black Engineers, and the Society of Women Engineers. So welcome, Ms. Ballard.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm just excited to be here and to encourage you all to just keep pushing and keep going along to get your degree and just be strong women in your career. For me, I was a returning student. I actually took a 6-year hiatus before I returned to finish my engineering degree. I was actually a clerk at a juvenile court, and I decided to go back to school and finish my degree. And it was hard because typically I was the only female or one of a handful of female in my classes. But you know, I pushed through, I worked part-time, and here I am. So just keep pushing.
Awesome, welcome, thank you. Okay, next we have Miss Ciara Rogers, who is a Vice President of Product at xTuple ERP. And then Ms. Rogers manages the product lifecycle of the enterprise resource planning software. She oversees software development, research and development, quality assurance, and user experience teams. She has a passion for data analysis and solving problems. She earned a master's degree in applied sociology from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and her master's is in psychology from Towson University. Welcome, Ms. Rogers.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to hear about other people's stories and hopefully be encouraging and yeah, so excited for this chat. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. Okay, so our third panelist is Ms. Snow, and Ms. Snow is a native of Mississippi and earned a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Memphis. She is pursuing a second degree in cybersecurity from ODU. She's also a combat veteran and has been recognized for her role in serving our country in combating the global war on terrorism in Afghanistan under Operation Enduring Freedom. Welcome, Ms. Snow.
Good morning, and it is a pleasure to be on this panel today, talking to our students and our community in honor of Women's Heritage Month. I hope I can share an incitement and enlightenment to spread some knowledge to you all and inspire you to continue your growth and your goals with your education.
All righty, thank you. Okay, and last but not least, we have our very own Professor Marilyn Castro, who is a professor of economics at TCC. Professor Castro is a native of Puerto Rico and a TCC alum. She is currently pursuing a master's degree in business administration from ODU. Professor Castro is an outstanding member of our community. She is active in community activities such as causes involving migrant workers' rights, homeless children, food insecure families, and she was also a recipient of Virginia Beach's Human Rights Awards. Welcome, Professor Castro.
Thank you so much for the invitation, for having me. I'm excited about this panel. I just wanted to be a force of empowerment for future generations, for myself, I have to say that my dad only was able to go to school until 4th grade. And that's something that always kind of pushed me to become better. So I'm looking forward for this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we have a few questions that I'll ask, and if each panelist, and we can, if you want to jump in, if you feel strong about it, you can jump right in, or we can go in order that at least on my screen is Miss Ballard, Miss Rogers, Miss Snow, and then Miss Castro. So it's your choice. So the first question: as a woman pursuing a career field that has historically not offered much inclusive workforce for women, can you describe a challenge that you've had, that you faced in the work environment that, due to this lack of diversity, and what strategies did you use to stay motivated in pursuing your goals?
That's a good question. For me, it was feeling heard, and it started in college. I went to a American Society of Civil Engineers competition in Florida, and I was with a group where it was only me and another female. And every time we spoke, we felt like our words were just dismissed. And then in my current career, when I first started, I would speak up over the phone because, the pandemic, and a lot of times I would feel like they would talk over me. So for me, my strategy was just to speak up, to just not be soft-spoken, and just have a confidence about yourself. So that way, because you have to be your biggest advocate. Nobody else is going to fight for you like you. So that would be my strategy, is to just have confidence and speak up.
Yeah, being your biggest advocate, that is something that we could all take as a good advice. So thank you. Ms. Rogers?
Yeah, so I don't have one example of a major challenge. I recognize that while I am a woman, I have other various privileges that have afforded me a different experience of working in tech than, say, a Black woman or an Asian woman or Latina or a Native woman. But I definitely still notice microaggressions on a regular basis. Microaggressions are those like small interactions or engagements where it's like, that's uncalled for. Like, that comment was not appropriate. And it makes me feel other, right? So things like when I answer the phone, people ask if I'm the secretary for someone else. And I'm like, I work at a small company. Nobody has secretaries. Or I provided a presentation at one point, and the feedback that I got, I was looking for criticism. How can I improve for next time, right? And the feedback I got was, you looked so serious. You should probably smile more. Or everybody else wore dark colors. Maybe I was wearing like a yellow sweater. And they were like, don't wear bright colors. Don't draw attention to yourself. And I was like, okay, but what about the content? What about the actual presentation, right? So it's those little things, they can really chip away, but in terms of like what motivates me to keep going on, it's that drive, that fire that's in me that says I have to keep pushing, that I have a higher goal, a higher purpose, I have a skill or a talent that I need to use to share with others, to make other people's lives easier, better, what have you, and making that drive a priority, furthering my own education, whether it's through organized education or if it's Udemy or it's watching TED Talks. Making yourself a priority is so important. So, I would say, think about how you're spending your time. Are you spending it on you, and are you spending it on chasing your drive, your goals, your passion? I hope so. And if you're not, maybe it's time to think about those priorities a little differently. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. You brought up so we got the biggest advocate. We have microaggressions, and so even though you may not have the same experience, all of our experiences are important and they matter. And I don't know if you saw me rolling my eyes when you said the about the comment on the superficial comments on lipstick or the hair. What's like that has nothing to do with the substance that we're about, and women will be faced with that, and dealing with that. So you gave some very good techniques as well as Miss Ballard. So thank you. This is awesome. So let's move on to Miss Snow. Hey, Miss Snow.
Hi. So one of the things for me is knowing that I belong at the table, that seat that's there at the table is mine because I worked hard for it. I many times have walked into rooms and I am the only woman. Not only the only woman, but many times the only person of color. And maybe I work with people who've never actually seen someone like me, or have had that interaction with someone who is African American. And I have to sit there and remember that I am their first experience. And I have to set the tone and the bar high. Don't be your own imposter is my favorite thing. I actually have that as the magnet on my refrigerator door because imposter syndrome is something that many times we are faced with because we wonder, do we really belong there? And I have to remind myself every day, you belong here because you put yourself here. You did the work, you put in the energy, the time, and your passion and the drive for what you do. That's what has you here. It's not because I'm a woman. It's not because I'm a woman of color. It's because I have done and paid that fortitude towards being where I belong. So just remember to stay true to yourself. And when you do think that you don't belong, just remember that that's your own self-imposturing where you think you should be maybe, but where you truly are, that's exactly where you put yourself and you believe in yourself. So therefore you will be there for yourself.
Wow, that is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Positive self-talk is so important. It's so important for us to say positive affirmations to ourselves and that you belong because you say you belong, not because anybody else. So you got to claim it. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Snow. And Professor Castro?
Well, I think that challenges, it could be, for me, it could be my language, my accent. I'm from San Juan, Puerto Rico. And some people say, well, you don't look like Puerto Rican and you should speak without an accent. But, I don't let those things affect me at all. I don't spend time. I decided to shut those things down because I have limited energy. And because I'm an economist, I know my energy is limited. So I'm going to choose to invest my force in things that are productive. So I have, maybe I can say, well, I have certain challenges, but I have to be quite honest. When I graduated with my master in economics, I applied for TCC and Dean Fairchild gave me a shot immediately, 2 months after graduation. And I am working with a great team of economists that I respect and adore them. And I would say you have to be persistent. You have to work hard. You have to commit. You have to say, well, that's something that I would never think that I was going to be able to accomplish. And I did because I challenged myself. And I decided not to listen to the negative thoughts of my mind. Instead, I foster, okay, I know I come from a place that maybe I didn't have that many opportunities, but now I have so many opportunities. So I'm going to just start opening doors and windows. And I do that on a regular basis. And if a door closes, remember, windows opens too. You just get in.
Awesome. That is awesome. And, I love how you are focusing on how you're spending your energy. And as an economist, we all have finite resources, and energy is a big one. So thank you for sharing that. All righty. Awesome. So let's go to question number 2. Question number 2. What efforts have you seen or supported in the feat to close the gap or to help make your industry more diverse, inclusive, and equitable for women?
For me, this is a huge thing. When I was in high school, I went to an engineering and technology magnet high school, but the speakers, the engineers that came to speak to us, they were all male, predominantly white male. So I didn't see engineers that looked like me, even though I wanted to be an engineer. So for me to close the gap is to let people know that representation matters. So, wherever I'm going, I'm like, I'm not shouting to the rooftops that I'm an engineer, but I let people know, yeah, when I'm talking to younger kids and teenagers, I'm letting them know, hey, I'm an engineer. This is what you can do. This is possible for you. And what I love is that my job, we have employee resource groups. So we have Women in Shipbuilding Enterprise. And so with that, it's like, it's uplifting women in the industry, but also it's not just open to women. So we have our employee resource groups. We have a group specific for Asians, for Hispanics, for African Americans, even for veterans, and they're not just for that specific group. So anybody could be a part of these groups. And I think it's important to have those groups where everybody can be a part, because it takes more than just one group to change a complete industry. Another way is through the engineering ambassadors at ODU. With that, we would bring in Girl Scouts, elementary schools, middle schools, and we would show them the School of Engineering to get them excited about engineering, to show them that it's not boring, it's not just all math and science. You don't have to be. A lot of times I think that they have to be excellent in math and science, and you don't have to. It's just depending on how hard you're willing to work for it. If you're willing to do the work, it's not always going to be easy. And the other thing is be willing to pour into others, not just where you're being seen in a community event or on an event like this, but pour into those around you. Like for me, for those at my church, for kids that I know people that are interested in engineering fields and in any STEM field, really, just to be that mentor to them, to reach out and say, hey, what do you need help with? Or, hey, how can I encourage you? And I think it's very important for women like us to just pour into other people in our everyday lives.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Ms. Rogers?
Yeah, I'm going to echo some of the things that Belle just said. The events like this are so incredibly important. And I actually found out about this event because a coworker told me about it. So one thing that I think we can all do is tell others about events like this, whether it's beforehand or after. So this is being recorded. So maybe if it's something that is shared with us, we can post and say, hey, everybody check out this great conversation that occurred, whether it's with your friends or your coworkers. You just spread the word about organizations and events like this. As well as research meetup groups. Now a lot of people are doing these meetup groups from home, so it's virtual in a safe way. And so if it's I want to learn something new, like I want to learn to code, I've never typed any kind of command line, there's meetup groups specifically for, hey, that's fantastic, let's welcome everybody and let's teach you how to do that, or let's share our project ideas, or solve problems together. So I think meetup groups is a great way to, like I said, especially because it's virtual now, we can feel safe and meet other people, expand our network and expand our knowledge, and and share that with other people, right? But I just encourage, just find something that you're passionate about and chase after it, go after it, and befriend people there, because that's how you might find out about events like this. And then my last big thing that I really support and I encourage and I try to do and engage with is mentorship. I'm a huge fan of providing that insight, that advice, that experience with someone else who either might be going through similar situations, or they're trying to kind of follow the path that you're leading. But also there's the other end of it. Look for a mentor. Look for someone who And it doesn't need to be in your industry, it doesn't need to be that job title, but someone who can see the talent in you, who can see the skills in you, and you can tell like they want to encourage you, and they're going to be honest with you. They're not just going to tell you what you want to hear. So find that mentor who's going to push you, who's going to introduce you to others, and like that's unfortunately like that's how a lot of connections happen, is networking. And as an introvert, that can be challenging, but my mentor introduced me to people, and now I'm mentoring others on how to handle tough situations, how to negotiate their salary, how to do things that are uncomfortable, like tough conversations. So mentorship would be my number one big thing.
All right, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Miss Snow.
For me, one of the ways that I'm closing the gap is, of course, mentorship, as it's been echoed before me by the other panelists. In my organization, I'm a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, and we love the idea of educating young women and fostering that safe haven for them to be able to grow and explore themselves in that world of education. Education is one of the biggest pieces to closing that gap, which those of you who are in academia, whether it's in workforce solutions or through actually getting your degree at TCC, or even furthering on into the four-year platform like myself, research, ensuring that your research closes the gap. And I want to express that probably the deepest, because I didn't realize that until I started pursuing my second undergraduate degree, which I'm working on a research project where I'm closing the gap in cybersecurity amongst minority women and looking at cyber criminals in that mindset, but opening your mind up to when you're looking at that research, stepping outside of that cookie cutter box. Instead of just doing that quantitative, maybe you do something that's qualitative. Maybe you look at it in a different perspective view to bring an enlightenment to yourself, which sets you apart from your peers. And you want to do that because you're already in a challenging position, because you are a woman endeavoring into a field of interest that we are very scarce in. So you want to look different. You want to be courageous enough to step outside of that box and step up and say, hey, I'm here. And I'm here, and this is what I'm bringing to the table for you to look at, and being your own voice. No one can do it better than the work you're doing in academia and actually researching a platform that speaks to you and to women in general. So I'm going to encourage you to dig deep and find that passionate project that you want to jump on. Find you a person to be your faculty mentor. There are plenty of them here at TCC that would love to engage in research with you, to have your name attached to it, because it's nothing like getting that published and seeing your name right there on that white page, and then getting it published in general in a journal.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. Snow. And Professor Castro, can you share with us?
Yes. I said I'm lucky enough because I have the classroom. And that's the perfect environment for me to be able to encourage anybody that walk in my classroom. I think for me, the most important thing is that anything that I have achieved, I consider myself a superpower. And my obligation, because I have a superpower, is to share it. And I must share my superpowers with anybody that is willing to learn from me. And it's like being I always take very seriously to be part of somebody's academic journey. Is so significant, is so empowering, taking and foster everybody to take challenge. It's okay if you're afraid, but just go and do it. Just try it. You know, if I was afraid for many situations, I think I would not be here, because statistically everything was against me. So we have to, the classroom, and you know, you can be a mentor at any time. You can talk to anybody, as long as you connect, as long as you're honest, as long as you collaborate, and most important, to become accessible. Sometimes for us professors, we get so engaged in the knowledge. It became so convoluted that sometimes we lose the capacity of talking simple terms. And I always remind myself of that. I need to break economic theory to a simple term to be able to explain for my freshmen or my high schoolers. And I think that's extremely important. And when we do that, and every time that we talk to somebody, we kind of invest a little bit on them, I think we can close the gap.
Awesome. That's awesome. So we've heard some really encouraging, inspiring, uplifting comments, giving back. I heard networking, finding a mentor, or even being a mentor. Then you have research, stepping out of your box, bringing your authentic self, right? So you can't outbest somebody else. You got to bring your authentic self to the table. That's very strong. And encouraging other people, sharing your superpower. I like that. You got a superpower. Thank you guys for sharing those very inspiring perspectives. Okay, so question number 3 deals with, I'll just say it. All right, question number 3, what advice do you have for students who want to pursue your field, but are discouraged because they do not see many professionals who look like them?
For the first one, who do not understand that diversity is an issue in your industry, I actually worked with someone who told me he had over 30 years of experience as an engineer, and he told me he doesn't believe that there is an issue with basically closing the gap with women in the workplace. He said that women just aren't interested in this field, in the field of engineering, so that's why they're not present. And I was the only female on the floor. And so my advice to someone who doesn't understand that diversity is still an issue in the engineering field is just really to open their eyes, to look around, to put themselves in somebody else's shoes that doesn't look like them. And I feel like once they realize that it's not just a woman problem, or it's not just a Black person or Hispanic or Asian person's problem, then they'll realize that they can do more to make women feel welcome in the workplace. I feel like, oftentimes, you feel like you're competing with someone else that you're working with. And instead of kind of being put down, they can take that opportunity to uplift us. And for those who are students now who may feel discouraged by hearing like, oh, there's men that think that they, it's not an issue, or that don't really help out with correcting the issue of making the workplace feel more welcoming to diversity, don't give up. Keep trying, because there's nothing better than the feeling of accomplishment when you complete a project that's going to change something that's bigger than yourself. That when you're working on, whether it's trucks or ships or wherever life takes you, there's nothing more accomplishing than you doing something because you believe in yourself. And also be yourself. Don't be afraid to, if you wear braids, go to work with your braids. If you wear hoop earrings, go to work with your hoop earrings, because people need to see, younger kids need to see that this is what an engineer looks like. You can be yourself. You don't have to change the way you dress. You don't have to change the way you do your hair or the way you speak. You can actually be yourself in the industry. And if you're the first one to do it, it's hard being the first in your industry, in your job, but to be the first one to do it, you're showing so many other people that, hey, this is what I can be. And you're inviting the environment to change in the future.
Thank you for those powerful words. All righty. Ms. Rogers?
So I think B just covered everything I was going to say. But so for the first half of that question, it's about like, how do you handle, these maybe coworkers or colleagues or just people who say, oh, there's not a gap. Well, I love math. I love data analysis. So my response is go Google that. Go look up the numbers. Go look up the percentage of full-time employees in tech who are women. Uh, I think I looked it up the other week and it was the average is like 25%. 25% of the workforce full-time in tech consists of women. But women were the first computers. Like, thank you, Hidden Figures and the women of NASA for highlighting how women were the first computers. Like, we're good at math. It's the societal like pressures of like, oh, girls are good at this and boys are better at this, and like, no, like they so if we look at the math and we look at the data and we look at the research, you know, if that's the case, then that clearly is a direct line to these experiences. You can't invalidate someone's experience, like they're related. But anyways, sorry, I could talk about that for a whole hour. But what can students who are pursuing a particular field, if they don't see that representation of themselves in that career that they want to chase after, man, I want to be your cheerleader. I want to encourage you to take that leap, to just like take a deep breath and just go for it. Just jump, because no matter where you land, you can always jump again. Because no matter where you end up, it's not the end of the story. So if you take that job that you're not sure of, or if you go and sign up for a class that you're not sure of, if it's not where you want to be, you can always shift, right? You can always kind of transition. But find someone who believes in you, who will, when you take that leap, they're going to like lift you up so that you can go further, so that whenever you land, you're not alone. Find that support group who is going to encourage you, who's going to be honest with you and guide you and give you that good advice. And just remember that, you breaking through and being that first, you're carving a path for others. And as our vice president says, it might be the first, but it won't be the last.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So Ms. Snow, please share.
One of the things that I like to think of in my civilian career outside of the military is remembering that our strength comes from our differences. And we draw from that, especially when confronting those who are under the falsehood that there is not a gap, that truly, that, we do need to close that gap off. One of the things that I continue to remember is breaking through those ceilings, though. That whole idea of the momentum of that I could be the one to make history. In the military, one of the things we pride ourselves on is our military history and our backing of the things that we've done and the conflicts that we've been in and the accolades that we gain. But what we can kind of look at and align with it is when you see that female there, and I see that female in power, and I see that female empowerment and that embracing, that is us closing the gap. That educating of those peers who do not believe that there is a gap, that is important. It is important for you to be the one to say, well, actually, as a female, as a woman of color, being that ally for one another. If you happen to be an introvert, well, then do it in a letter. Maybe you do better at writing it up as an open-ended anonymous letter to the entire staff to say, well, I overheard a conversation that said that this was the gap wasn't present, but as a person who is a woman, this is what I see after this conversation. Sometimes the responses that you get might not be exactly what you're expecting. You might think that because they were having that dialogue that maybe they're closed off, when honestly, they just were ignorant to the idea of what was going on. It's not that it's an intolerance to it, it's just that there was an ignorance to it. So your enlightenment allows them to know that, oh, wait, those words and that verbiage that I just used was incorrect, because someone just validated that there is. that validation is the most important piece, because until we voice that there is a problem and that the gap is there, the gap will continue to be there and it will grow wider. I hope that the future generations that are coming behind me can see the narrowing of the margins that I'm putting down for the footwork for them in the military and in cybersecurity on these unexplored frontiers that we are in. We are in grave, unprecedented times with the novel coronavirus as well, but I have seen the waves and the passions, as Ms. Rogers just said, with our newly appointed Vice President Harris and what Joe Biden is trying to do with his administration of having so many females of different colors and cultures. So we just have to remember that the gap closing, it's our responsibility to do it. And through that responsibility and task, we need to take that charge seriously.
I was muted. All right, thank you so much. Very awesome words. And Professor Castro.
I would say be a trailblazer, like, you know, the rest of the panels, and march on your own beat. And sometimes I have to say that we are our worst enemies. Sometimes we want to mimic something that is perfection. And it's okay, there's going to be certain tasks that we're not that great at it, but that doesn't mean that we're going to quit. And that's one of the things that happen in economics. We see a lot of attrition levels because the moment that those students earn an A-, they want to pursue another degree. So we need to start looking on those statistics because that's something very significant. And at the same time, we people that are in our position, we have to tell the little girls or the people that are trying to achieve degrees in this career, it's okay to have a B. It's all good. You're going to make it instead of quitting. So I think it's important that we females, we need to become our best allies. We need to say it's okay. Also, we know society put a lot of pressure on us. If you're 32 and you don't have children, why you don't have children? Why you're 32 and you're not married? We need, and sometimes these questions come from female. We're putting this pressure among ourselves. So if we're gonna start mentoring, we need to start getting together and say, hey, listen, if we want to close the gap, we need to be our cheerleaders. And we need to make sure that we foster and we keep assisting the new generations on be able to carry a professional life and also have a family life that most women would like to achieve. So that's what I will say that I have on my notes.
Awesome, thank you. Having a balance is a beautiful thing. Okay, so at this point, you know, the questions and the answers and the responses have just been awesome. And now we want to hear from you all, from the audience. Do we have any questions? And I think Miss Jada's gonna read.
Yeah, we have a couple in the chat. Thank you so much for submitting questions. The first question we have here, what made you choose your career field? And did you have a role model growing up in that career field?
I want to answer that question.
Sure.
I did not have a role model in that career. So it was for me, it was an accident kind of happened at ODU when I saw myself tutoring a lot of the people that were going and completing. My undergrad was a double major, finance and economics. And one of the students is like, you should be teaching. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So be willing to learn, risk, have your heart open. You don't need if you're up to the challenge, take a step to the unknown and be willing to learn. It's okay. Some people have more opportunities than others. And maybe some people start the race a little bit ahead, but that doesn't mean that they're going to reach the destination sooner than you. So everybody has a different path. And I think we need to live our life the best way that we can with whatever life gives us. It's a deck of cards. But you have a deck of cards and you have your hand, you try to play it the best way that you can.
I'd love to just add on to that. In my career field, I did not have a role model growing up working in that career field. I came from downtown Newport News, and there really wasn't any female, Black female engineers that I had to look up to. But I did have an older sister. She was 4 years older than me, and she actually sparked my interest in engineering. I was always good at math and science. But she started drawing floor plans, and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. And she was bringing home architecture magazines, and I was like, I think I really want to do this. And so just watching her journey actually empowered me to do it. And she's actually a mechanical engineer now at the shipyard as well. So luckily I had someone to look up to help me on my journey. And even though she wasn't an engineer at the time, her push actually was like borrowed courage for me to keep going.
I did not have a mentor either, being that cybersecurity is so new. And it's so up and coming. It actually didn't even exist when I went and got my first degree. It wasn't something we took of prevalence. So I guess I was my own mentor and my own engager because I knew it existed. It was something that was important to me. I just didn't know how to put my finger on exactly what it was called or what it was. So going back to school, I guess I could say my parents were the ones that encouraged me to go back and get a second degree and pursue my dreams in pursuing cybersecurity.
So I never saw myself working for a software company like I do now, actually. I didn't discover what my talent really was until I got to my senior year of undergrad. I took a course on data analysis, and everybody wanted to copy my homework because it was too hard, that kind of situation, which I didn't let them, by the way. But I enjoyed data analysis because I liked the combination of math and trying to analyze that, and then what does that mean and next steps. And as a sociology background, to be honest with you, my dream was to do research, which I started doing on drug addicts and sex workers and social programs to help them with their situations, and use the data from those social programs to talk to politicians about supporting certain laws or changes or funding. And then I found out that the politicians didn't want to hear from data scientists, that they weren't interested unless I was willing to donate a lot of money. And so I had to kind of shift gears and say, okay, I still care about people. I still care about data analysis. So how can I use that drive and passion to continue to help people? And I found, working with health insurance companies and people, how do I, help with programs to encourage more healthy behaviors? How do I, increase rates of preventative care? And then one thing led to another, and it was like, oh, I can take the same mindset and how do I apply that to businesses? How can I help businesses understand their data so that they can be more successful? And so I would say, whatever your goal is right now, just be open to, that's my goal because this is my passion. How can I shift in case things shift? Cybersecurity came along, like maybe that wasn't a thing, so long ago, but being able to identify this is why I love this so much and finding that problem to solve, I think that's so important. Sam.
Absolutely. We have one question on expanding Can you expand on the imposter syndrome, explain what it is and how students should deal with this? And I believe Ms. Snow, you brought up the imposter syndrome. So could you address that question?
Yes, I can. So the imposter syndrome is where you are self-impostering yourself to think that you are not good enough or that you are not supposed to be there or not at the table. It's basically self-doubt in self. And it happens often with many people. I think a lot of us faced this during the coronavirus with not knowing, what was happening, the unknowns and the what the outcomes could possibly be. Or if we were already going through some kind of self-development and growth before it happened, how do I continue along on that journey with, some kind of change? A lot of times the catalytic measure of the imposter syndrome comes from change or from feedback. Maybe you get some negative specific feedback from a professor on something that you're doing and you're like, well, maybe I don't really belong here. Maybe I'm not meant to get a college degree. Maybe I'm not meant to go back to college. These are those naysayers that you're saying to yourself. But that's not reality, because you are meant to be here. You are meant to get that degree. You are meant to excel beyond where you currently are, to go beyond where you want to even desire to be. It's just we have to change our mentality around how we're looking at something. So like one of the things at work, I got some very negative specific feedback from someone on something that I was doing. And I was like, oh, I wasn't really aware that was a problem, but I'm glad that you brought that to my attention. And now I must correct it. And in the military, it's on your appearance, because it's a big important part. And I told them I wasn't aware that the regulations had quite changed yet, but that I would get myself in order. I could have easily thought that because that person gave me that specific feedback about the way I was and how I had handled the changing of the regulation, that I didn't belong in being a sergeant, that I didn't belong in getting that promotion, that I hadn't quite met the plateau of where I really was in my career path. Instead, I actually took that opportunity to give some feedback to that sergeant themselves, to say, the way you approached it, coming to me with it, although I appreciate you giving me that information, you would have started with asking questions to seek for understanding of where my knowledge path was of it, of if it was intentional or not. So having that dialogue with yourself with imposter syndrome, sometimes if it's something given to you by someone else, maybe you need to have that dialogue of feedback with them to tell them how you would like to receive feedback, so that it doesn't cause you to imposter yourself in the process of growing.
Great, thank you. Very detailed, appreciate that. So we have one question, a couple of questions that I'm just going to kind of combine. And so it says that, how do you encourage people who may be non-traditional students, maybe older, different demographics, or maybe they don't identify as any particular gender? And so how would you encourage them to get involved, go back to school, pursue their passions?
I actually love this question, because this is the type of question that I would have asked when I was a returning student. For me, I was a non-traditional student. Actually, me deciding to go back to school was kind of like me. I was like working my job in court, and it was like, it's like, I'm thinking I used to be an engineering student. I may go back. And the judge that I was working with was like, you should do it. And because she believed in me, it gave me enough courage to think, hey, I can do this. So my advice would be to just, if you don't have the courage, borrow it. It's so important to have a good support system. My desk is like surrounded with quotes and encouraging books and different things to just keep me encouraged, to remind me that, hey, I'm worthy of the space that I'm in. Also, as a non-traditional student, I had already had my kids and I was married. A lot of times I felt bad for not being able to meet with the group at a certain time because I had to get my daughter off the school bus. And then when I started working in my career, men were taking off for their kids, and and they weren't scared to do it. They're like, hey, I can't be here at this time. So you're gonna have to make sacrifices in your career and on this journey, but also value your family, value the things that matter to you. You can do it. You can work part-time and go to school. You can, have children. When I decided to go back to school, my son was less than 1 year old. And someone told me that, hey, there's no way you're gonna work part-time. You got a 3-year-old and a newborn baby. There's no way you're gonna go to school for engineering. You could do it for something else, but not engineering. And thank God that I didn't listen to them. Thank God that I kept pushing, and I had a support system of people. When I felt like giving up, they were like, wait, let's figure it out. There were issues with classes and the timing. I ended up taking classes at a community college and have it transferred to ODU, so that way I could finish my degree and I could take those classes in the evening. So, and then a lot of times I went to events like this, and I would look for speakers who were non-traditional students, and I didn't see them. And because I didn't see them, I felt like I don't belong here. So my biggest thing is confidence. Believe in yourself. And when you don't believe in yourself, borrow the courage from somebody else, because you can do it.
All righty. That's awesome. We are getting very close to the closing hour, so it's almost 1 o'clock. This has been so enlightening and uplifting and engaging, and I just want to thank you guys. And in the chat, we had some very just some awesome questions, but we couldn't get to them. So we will provide contact information so that if you want to contact folks later, or one of the professors, even myself, you can do that. So that information will be in the chat. But again, I just want to thank you guys for your time and encouraging all of us to look at how we can close this gap so that women do feel comfortable pursuing careers in this path. These pathways are lucrative, rewarding, and could just also be a lot of fun as well. So thank you so much for coming. Clap, clap, clap. And unless Dean Nancy, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I would like to close. Thank you all for attending and joining us. This was a wonderful conversation. And thank you, our panelists. Thank you so much for your courageous words, your background, your experience, and just sharing your story. Sharing a story is just so important, and it certainly has such an impact on those who are listening. Before we go, for some of you, I just wanted to quickly share our next speaking engagement. As you see here, in the month of April, we're going to have our TCC Alumni Entrepreneurial Panel. And what that will include is it will actually be a session on April 15th at 12 that will highlight prominent Tidewater alumni entrepreneurs, sharing best practices, lessons, and personal and professional development opportunities. But it's also going to speak we're going to have a special guest that we're going to also feature. Her name is Ms. Joyce Diaz, and she's from the Diaz Resume Company. So she's an entrepreneur, but she's going to focus on how to truly market and brand yourself. So those of you who are graduating, who's getting ready to look for some employment, or those of you who are just preparing for that time of entering the workforce, this is going to be an exciting event where you'll learn how to truly do that, the skills and things that you need to actually brag on yourself, as it were, but also the opportunity of meeting our former students who, because of their preparation here, events like this and their experience, they're going to be able to share with you how they navigated and landed that job as well. So thank you all. I look forward to seeing you all next on April 15th at 12 right here in Zoom. And thank you again, Ms. Hall, for being our savvy tech person and being in charge of the comments and the chat. And I want to also thank a special thank you to Ms. Penny Williams for being such an awesome moderator and keeping the dialogue going and interesting. And so thank you so much. This was a wonderful event, and we'll see you again. Take care. Have a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. This was awesome.